Good day everyone, this is my day 2 games of the Spikemuth Cup competition. I'm using the same team as last video, of course I am, there's no other option, the team is locked in when I start the tournament. And I know these videos are quite long, so thank you guys for actually watching. As a bit of a spoiler, I do pretty well to finish this day 2. My opponent has a pretty interesting rain team. Seismitoad is good, and that's known, but Beartic and Politoed definitely not standard choices. And also, Rain is pretty interesting without the Dynamax Max Geyser to be able to set it immediately. Amoonguss has pretty good matchup against the Rain. I think I do bring Clefable for the Dragapult, and I bring Urshifu. Urshifu is going to be my main check to the Beartic. This 3 actually is fairly weak to Beartic, mind you, but with the Toxapex and the Amoonguss, I felt like he wasn't going to bring the Raincore. And Dragapult versus Amoonguss, fairly safe Spore here. He might go for the substitute, but he might also not, and even if he goes for the substitute, I can just go for the foul play and break it the next turn, and I won't be losing too much momentum off of that. And in case he isn't sub as he reveals U-turn, then this Spore is going to get a lot more value out of that than the foul play will. Let's see, he brings in Ferrothorn, so that is going to be his Spore absorber. And I am just going to take this opportunity to go straight into Urshifu and fire off some attacks. And hopefully he doesn't go for the immediate damage body press, and because that way I might be kind of forced to go for the close combat Wicked Blow Mind game. It does have close combat immunity Dragapult in the back, but because he went for the Stealth Rock instead, I'm just gonna go for the 2-hit KO with Wicked Blow. And he does indeed switch out into Zapdos. And that means that I'll be able to just go for the Wicked Blow. Hopefully, if I don't get paralyzed by static, as he is shown to not be pressure, and by process of elimination, he must be static. So I am going to not get paralyzed, meaning that, and also he is fairly bulky, so that means that I'll be able to outspeed and get the 2-hit KO. I do get paralyzed from static on the second try, which by statistically it is fairly likely to happen. I need to roll the 70% twice. That means that about half the time I will be paralyzed when I'm going for this 2-hit KO. But I'm okay with this static para because Urshifu, even when it is slower than Dragapult, can still take a hit and trade damage that way. And it's also still going to be faster than the Ferrothorn. So actually this para not going to matter directly unless I'm actually gonna get fully paralyzed, which can happen, but with the Pokemon advantage, I do feel fairly safe here. And unfortunately for me, I do get the full paralysis, and that means that I really need to actually be able to actually move this turn, because otherwise I'd be in pretty big trouble. I do go for the Wicked Blows instead of trying to switch out and try to hit the close combats, because this is still doing a ton of damage, and once this damage has been done, this is definitely in KO range of Flamethrower from the Clefable, and that means that Clefable should be able to beat the Ferrothorn and the Dragapult without any troubles. So yeah, and he has lefties as well, so that means that no Occaberry or anything of that matter to actually pressure this Clefable. And I'm just gonna go for the flamethrower, and I have no reason to just not hit what's directly in front of me. Yep, and this is gonna win the game. He goes into the Dragon Pulse on the flamethrower, which is, I guess that this is hoping that he somehow wins this 1v1. So, if that is the case somehow, then sure, you can win. So he is playing for his out. But because I am fully physically defensive, and he revealed to be also be physical, I can just go for the Moonblast. That should easily KO. And yeah. Game 2, I am against Dracovish, Cinderace, and actually this team, I've seen a lot of these types of offensive teams with Urshifu, with the Dracovish, Cinderace, and they actually match up pretty well against bulky core like mine. I do think about bringing Toxapex here, but I actually choose to bring Garchomp for the Cinderace and Zapdos check. It does have a pretty good offensive matchup. But maybe in hindsight, I think maybe I should have brought the Toxapex instead of the Amoonguss, maybe. But that might leave myself a bit more weak to Zapdos, so it's tough to call. And the thing with Amoonguss is that I'm actually able to kind of put the Zapdos to sleep turn 1 and take any attack from it. I probably won't even go down to my Focus Sash with Hurricane, because I'm not sure how viable like fully offensive Zapdos are, with Hurricane being so inaccurate. And he does go for the Heat Wave, going for the guaranteed damage, and that doesn't even do half. So Amoonguss going to be able to switch out into Urshifu or Garchomp. I do go into Urshifu. Maybe that was a bit of a misplay, but yep, I'm gonna go straight into the Urshifu. Try to fire off a Wicked Blow. He switches out the Zapdos and goes into Urshifu. So that is a very good play, and I do think that I'm definitely punished for not going Garchomp. It's a very risky play to make, going Urshifu into Urshifu, but judging by how common what do you call it, Bandit Urshifu are in the metagame, it is definitely the correct play for sure. And he doesn't even go for the close combat, he just goes straight out for the U-turn. And that is really bad, especially if you can bring in some other threat that is not asleep and not the Zapdos. So, and he brings in Cinderace, so this is, I definitely think this is pretty much checkmate for me, because that means that I definitely need to take a ton of damage on the Garchomp to actually take out this Cinderace without dying. and that means that Urshifu can beat the Garchomp 1v1. And that means that my own Urshifu has to beat the Zapdos plus Urshifu, their Urshifu, and I can't lock into a single move that can do both. So definitely messed up there. I do think Toxapex would have given me a lot better odds, especially because it seemed to be pretty defensive on the Zapdos, but because Zapdos is such an offensive threat to my team, that is definitely a mistake I made in team building. I've actually seen a lot of similar teams as mine opt for, instead of Toxapex, or instead of Zapdos actually, opt for Rotom Heat in order to actually check the Zapdos.
Actually, you guys might see that exact team. I forget if it was on day 2 or day 3, but I did end up running into a team that was like very similar, had a very similar premise. In the Urshifu, Garchomp, and Amoonguss to kind of take advantage of the defensive Pokemon and Fairy type. And instead of Zapdos, I had a Rotom Heat to kind of switch around with the Volt Switch cycle, and had a Clefable to check all that as well. So pretty similar teams that ended up doing well, but here, because I ended up taking so much damage, and I also don't have a Swords Dance boost, I'm gonna lose this game. I do go for the SD, kind of hoping that goes for the Sucker Punch, because that is my only way out, kind of hoping that he misplays. But I go first with the Swords Dance, no Sucker Punch, so no misplays here. And he goes for the U-turn, and takes out my Garchomp. And there is no, move that I can walk into that actually wins in this position. Because Zapdos is asleep, but it is at full HP. And logging into close combat, probably not gonna do enough. Not gonna do enough damage in the short time frame I have until it wakes up. But I am still gonna probably go for the close combat here. Kind of hope maybe I don't get paralyzed ever, and maybe could get a 3-turn sleep or a critical, anything like that. And that will allow me to kind of get a chance to speed tie. All that for a speed tie. But static happens, that means that I lose 100%. And I think I just forfeit here. So an unfortunate loss, but well played to the opponent for to break my winning streak. He has minimal counterplay for Urshifu, so I definitely want to bring that. Clefable should be able to check Mimikyu and Scizor with Flamethrower, and I also want to bring Zapdos because I know that Arcanine can actually take a Urshifu hit and burn it, so I want to Volt Switch on that. So my opponent leads with the Arcanine, which is a smart call. And as I said, I am not able to one-hit KO this Arcanine. So I do want to go into the Zapdos on a very likely Will-O-Wisp. Maybe it is offensive, like it could go for close combat or play rough. And the Zapdos switch-in is perfect because it checks both possible scenarios in which my Urshifu loses. And let's say if it's something else, then that means that I can just Like, let's see if it's an offensive Arcanine. And that means that I have no rush to bring out their Shifu into the Arcanine and beat it 1v1. And he does indeed go for Will-O-Wisp, so that is confirmed defensive Arcanine, which, as I said, should be able to take a single hit. So actually I want to go for the Hurricane, because in case my Zapdos is faster, I don't want to Volt Switch and into Urshifu and eat a Will-O-Wisp. So I do go for the Hurricane. I do 50. And I definitely think that this is good, because he's basically forced to go for the Morning Sun. That means that I can Volt out safely into the Urshifu. And as per my game plan, I do go back into the Urshifu. If he does go for the burn, good play, but he does have the Will-O-Wisp inaccuracy plus the confusion. So this is definitely a great place to bring in the Urshifu. And I will just straight up go for the Wicked Blow. As I said, he is still confused. Will-O-Wisp can still miss. And even if none of that happens, I am going to be able to take out this Arcanine. And after this Arcanine is taken out, Arcanine with Snarl is taken out, my Clefable can go to town. So he does reveal the Rock Helmet, and he actually survives. But for some reason, instead of going for the Will-O-Wisp, he goes for the Snarl. I am assuming that he predicted the Zapdos pivot yet again, but this definitely does not work out for him. I am able to take this Arcanine KO for free. Almost for free. I am burnt with the Zapdos. Took some minimal chip with the Urshifu with the helmet and the Snarl, but neither of that is going to be too consequential. Especially with the fact that I still have a full health, non-burned Urshifu, just able to outspeed basically everything on their team and smack it, right? Like, so the big thing that I said makes Urshifu so good in this matchup is not just because I have a great offensive matchup, but also because I am able to outspeed everything. This is definitely why you don't want such a slow team. Actually, even though there were a lot of defensive teams, there's really a lot of very strong offensive threats, like Urshifu, Garchomp, things like that. And if you have no way to outspeed it, which actually is the theme for my team, and that means that you will be very limited in your counterplay. You have to only play it a specific way in order to beat those offensive checks. You are going to be forced to bring in specific defensive responses, which might be able to get taken advantage of. So that is exactly why you want at least some kind of speed check, against something that is definitely going to be faster than an Urshifu, right? So Mimikyu, yes, you're right. You do check Urshifu one time, but as I do here, I just bring in my Zapdos and I Volt Switch out, break the disguise, and that's no longer a check. I'm gonna bring out the Urshifu again and get another free KO. So this is going very grim for my opponent. As the going for the Snarl instead of Wisp definitely came back to bite him. So he is forced to reveal his last, which is going to be the Hatterene. And Hatterene, unless it has a very significant defensive investment or a Focus Sash, cannot survive this Wicked Blow. And if it were to be that defensive, Clefable could just easily Calm Mind up on it. So I'm gonna take this game and take 3 KOs with Urshifu actually. So Urshifu pretty dominant, but Zapdos paving the way for Urshifu with the Volt Switch. So my opponent is going to have a Veil team with the Ninetales. Has a bunch of setup sweepers with the Dragonite, with the Shell Smash, Garchomp, threats everywhere with the Metagross and Moltres. Going to be a pretty threatening duo of just straight up attackers that don't need Veil. But with the Ninetales matchup, I struggle to think of a possibility where he does not bring the Ninetales, right? So Ninetales, if it gets off the Aurora Veil, that it's done its job. But in this matchup against my specific team, uh, it's not just going to be able to set up Veil, it's also able to threaten so much big damage with the super effective coverage. So he does indeed lead with the Ninetales, and he does go for the Freeze Dry, which would have hit the Toxapex unlike a straight up Blizzard. But this actually is pretty good for me. So he goes for the damage, which doesn't even 2-hit KO Amoonguss, as you can see here. And that means that I am able to take advantage of this guaranteed return to go into my Bandit Urshifu and quick close combat. So I do know that he does have that the teapot, and if he were to go for the close combat, that could potentially turn pretty devastating. But I have no option to play around that. I do need to go for the close combat and take out this Ninetales. He does stay in, right? So if I went for the Wicked Blow and he stayed in, that could have turned into a disaster, as would have given him the turn to actually wake up. Interesting that he is taking his time. If he does bring in the teapot. Maybe he was calculating if close combat was banded, and he is correct. It is banded, and I do have an Amoonguss, which might die to a stored power, but kind of hoping that he doesn't have it. And even if he does, I do have the Clefable in the back, and stored power does ignore unaware in that the base power still increases, but I can try to kind of salvage that by going for my Calm Mind. So I think I just go for the Spore, hoping that he doesn't sub on it, but he forfeits. I guess we take those. I guess he didn't have sub, or he didn't have stored power. Either of that. He has a Venusaur Sun team, and this is actually really threatening. But I'm kind of glad I have switched my Rillaboom and Azumarill out for Amoonguss and Toxapex. This is still not a good matchup, but I'm gonna be able to take my Amoonguss and gonna be able to use that to what do you call, kind of stall out more sun turns than something like Rillaboom would have. And I'm gonna bring the Zapdos and no, the Garchomp for sure, which is going to be my one-time check to Venusaur. I'm gonna bring the Clefable. He leads with the Rotom Wash, and I actually led with the Amoonguss, so this is a perfect matchup for me. I think I might go for the Spore just because, but there's actually pretty good justification to go for the something like Foul Play or Clear Smog or something like that, right? Because Venusaur is so definitely switching in, and it is still definitely such a threat. that I could definitely take even the slightest chip, right? If it has Life Orb, yeah, he does bring in the Venusaur. And if I were to have done 15, 17% more damage onto this Venusaur, then that would be much better off for me. So yeah, he does go for the Sludge Bomb, but it does barely below half. I am also below half, but that also takes into account the Volt Switch damage. And that means that I can synthesis up. So, because he does not have the sun boosted, what do you call it, the weather ball, Amoonguss can just beat this 1v1. The fact that the Venusaur is situationally forced to go into the Torkoal, uh, potentially take some sleeps or anything like that, that is still definitely a big help. And he does bring in the Torkoal. Uh, the Torkoal can definitely beat this Amoonguss 1v1 if I were not to switch out of it. But I am gonna be able to go for the faster Spore here. And let's see if he switches right back. He does indeed switch right back out into the Venusaur. So either situation there, if I were to have played around that by going for attack, then Venusaur would be like definitely way lower. And that means that I could stay in, take advantage of the, what do you call it, the sash, and go for a third attack and KO it like that. But I am not going to be able to do that. I didn't push for every single bit of advantage, unfortunately. But he does reveal the Weather Ball. So I did go for the Synthesis just because I wanted to kind of check if he actually had Weather Ball instead of trying to dance around that. The Venusaur giving it free turn in the fear of a potential Weather Ball that he might or might not have. And the synthesis definitely still lets me stay healthy enough to switch into, for example, a Giga Drain. And in fact, I'm just gonna go straight up for the Earthquake. If he has Giga Drain, this is not gonna get KO from here. And there's also a good chance that he goes for the Weather Ball, protecting the Amoonguss. But that is not gonna work out. He actually gets a crit, so if he were to have just gone for the Giga Drain, he would have won the game, but he tried to predict me. Fortunately, doesn't get to take advantage of the luck that went his way. And the threat down, for sure. And Torkoal, usually not a very big offensive threat, probably not going to be able to break through the Clefable. And Rotom is hard-walled by Amoonguss. So right now, I don't really see a way that I can actually lose the game. So I'm just gonna go straight into the Amoonguss, take out this, take something out of commission with this Spore. And he, in fact, goes for Trick. So this Amoonguss switch, and as I said, was definitely obvious. And I made the play knowing that it is obvious, and thought he might just go for a Volt Switch into Torkoal. But he does something even better. He tricks me. That means that if I were to go for this Spore, then I would be locked in. And here I'm gonna take this advantage, take advantage of this free turn to go into Clefable. And Clefable will be able to Calm Mind up on this Rotom now that it is no longer able to Trick Scarf me. And after my Calm Mind boost, not gonna be able to overheat me for big damage.
So yeah, I'm just gonna start setting up Calm Mind as he goes out into Torkoal. Maybe he has something to actually stop me from actually prevent me from setting up long term. Maybe it has Yawn, but I do have my Garchomp, and that means that if I need to do it, then I can go to Garchomp and kind of try to play around the yawn somehow. I do also resist the overheat. I go for the Moonblast for a couple of reasons. First, I'm gonna need to get damage on this Torkoal regardless somehow. And the second is that I do have the chance to drop a special attack, and Torkoal, a lot of Torkoal do carry a jetpack, especially because he did reveal no Heat Rock from the Sun Turns, and that means that I got that much damage on the Torkoal for free. And now I could either go for a Calm Mind, or I could go for more Moonblasts, expecting the Torkoal to switch back in. So he needs to somehow, like, even though this Torkoal versus Clefable, I don't think is a very good matchup for Torkoal, but he has to keep switching into this because this is his only way to actually win the game. And it seems like I do get the 4 KO with the Moonblast. So that was a pretty funny interaction with the Jetpack. And hopefully, unless something really drastic happens, I should be able to clinch this. And he reveals Fissure, so I guess that was his tech. But I was able to not get hit by that. Unfortunately, I come out on top. So yeah, this is a pretty interesting team, but my opponent has a pretty defensive core with the Clefable and the Reuniclus Calm Mind core. I do think I need to bring Amoonguss for the Seismitoad and the Clefable, and I'm going to take advantage of that with Urshifu. So basically what it seems is he has to bring Clefable, but that lets my Amoonguss come in and spore something. So he leads with the Seismitoad, which is honestly a great matchup. Seismitoad can't do anything, and usually whatever he has in the back won't be able to directly switch into a Spore. He actually goes for a substitute, a very interesting play. I was about to say there was a possibility that he can have a Flame Orb on either the Reuniclus or the Clefable, which would be able to negate Spore, but not right immediately. So I try to go for the foul play, try to break the sub, and he goes into Clefable. So the way he played that was very clever, and it does suggest to me that he does have the Flame Orb, and now he is immune to Spore, which throws a wrench in my plans. I'm just gonna go for the Clear Smog. The main reason for that is, of course, that I am able to just eat up anything that the Clefable goes for. Flame Orb Clefable usually aren't Calm Mind, so he does go into Reuniclus, and I'm just gonna go for the Spore. If he goes to Clefable, then so be it. I've done free damage on it, and yeah, he does go for the Focus Blast, protecting the Urshifu. So I did a good play there by not switching directly into the Urshifu. And in fact, because I do have the Focus Sash, I was able to take a Side Shock or a Side Kick, either way. And I'm just going to take this opportunity to go hard into my Bandit Urshifu and force out this Reuniclus, right? Because even if he were to stay in and go for the Focus Blast, then that really doesn't mean anything, because there's a good chance that he doesn't even wake up. And even if he wakes up, he needs to actually land that. So he switches out, and I go for the Poison Jab. But he actually goes into the Seismitoad, predicting the Poison Jab. Clever play by him. But I do get the poison damage on the Seismitoad, so I have made significant progress on the Seismitoad regardless. Because one big thing is I am just able to sit on this with Amoonguss, and he can't just sub willy-nilly. Right, so I'm just gonna go hard into Amoonguss. I don't want to get Scaldberg or anything like that. If it's physical, then yeah, sure. I can just Poison Jab and trade damage and actually come out on top, because Urshifu is pretty bulky physically. But not gonna happen. I'm gonna go into Amoonguss, but he makes a very clever play going for that Reuniclus double switch out. He tries to wake it up, And I'm just gonna go hard into Clefable this time because I can just Calm Mind up on this. Right, and I didn't want to go into Urshifu, risk the Wake Up into Focus Blast hit. However unlikely, because I am in such a good position with the Urshifu, I'm just gonna go for a Calm Mind with my Clefable instead. And that should give me a little bit more room to get unlucky. He does get extended sleep turns, so I'm just gonna go for more Calm Mind and go for a Moonblast 2-hit KO. If he wakes up, he can't match Calm Minds with me because of Unaware, of course. And he wakes up and goes for the Psyshock, and it does surprisingly much. It is still not a 2-hit KO, fortunately. It seems to be a Life Orb, and I think that's the reason why it's doing so much. But I'm just gonna go for the 2 Moonblasts and go for 2-hit KO. Seems like one of the Calm Minds was pretty greedy, but I didn't know that this was going to be offensive Amoonguss, so I thought I needed the second Calm Mind to be actually 2-hit KOing. But I am still going to come out on top, and I'm going to go for the Moonblast. It seems like if I Moonlighted, I wasn't going to kill much anyways. And unfortunately, this leaves me in KO range of just about anything, but that's okay. Clefable and Seismitoad can't actually hurt Amoonguss much here anyways. So I could just sit around with Amoonguss and just stall chip damage. And if it comes to worst, I could even go for like a timer one or anything like that. So I do switch in directly into the Amoonguss. And do I go for the Clear Smog? That might be a better play here because the only way he can avoid taking permanent damage is going to the Clefable. So if he stays in with the Seismitoad, I'm very happy with that. And yep, I do almost nothing with the Clear Smog, but it doesn't matter. My poison will do a lot to him. And I am indeed taking advantage of the 30% poison that I got from the RNG, but I'm trying to make the best out of the current situation. I'm okay leveraging my luck as much as possible. I'm just gonna synthesis up here. Don't want to get a special defense drop, crit, anything like that. Want to stay healthy and topped off, and hopefully Amoonguss can clutch this one out. It might be an extended game if he doesn't forfeit, but I still don't see how I can lose this, given that how Seismitoad is so low, and he has no way to actually kill the Amoonguss. And he forfeits. Thank you. We've got a pretty interesting sand team here, with the Dracovish and the Garchomp and the Hippo. One interesting part of his team is the Cinccino, which could be a big threat here. I'm going to take advantage of Urshifu's bulk and Clefable's Rock Helmet to check the Cinccino. Garchomp looks very good offensively here, and is a one-time jump to Cinderace. So I will go for this 3. And this leaves me a bit weak to Dracovish. But as I've found out using this team a lot, Dracovish is almost always too scared of coming out into this match because I have Toxapex, I have Amoonguss, and Clefable. All of that is tough matchup depending on its set. And Garchomp can even outspeed it, go for a boosting move, things like that. So I lead with the Banded Urshifu. He leads with the Cinderace. This is not an ideal matchup for me, but I'm gonna take advantage of this opportunity to just go for a Sucker Punch, which gets guaranteed progress on this Cinderace. And I do quite a bit of damage. And actually, this will not KO it, but he goes for the U-turn. Smart play. I definitely understand that play because leader Shifu, especially in this matchup, is very likely to be sash and not banned. So I do get away with it there, but that could have gone really badly. And here he brings out Hippowdon. He definitely has a couple of good status moves, namely Stealth Rock and Yawn, and he will take advantage of this opportunity to go for those. It remains to be seen which he will go for first, but I will go into Clefable. I want to get some amount of chip damage onto this Hippowdon, especially if it's not a slack off variety. Moonblast will do a lot of damage and it'll stick. So, and I do have the Lumberry on the Garchomp, which should let me break out of this Yawn cycle if necessary. But I don't want to just go into the Garchomp right away and burn the Lumberry for minimal gain, as I'm forced to switch around anyways, right? So I want to at least get some chip damage on this Hippo, so when I do get to SD in front of the Yawn, I will be able to KO it with +2 Earthquake, as opposed to not getting anywhere. He swiftly goes for the Whirlwind. Smart play. He is a bit concerned about, I guess, me setting up Calm Minds or anything like that. Though I do think he could have gone for the Yawn. I don't wanna SD and stay in extended damage trades just now. Just at least not yet. So I don't want to Swords Dance just yet. So I go for the damage with the EQ. And Clefable comes out. And I will keep Moonblasting. I have no reason not to do anything else. And the big thing here is I definitely want to preserve my Garchomp's health for this Cinderace. And other than that, I don't think there's anything really big that I need to be concerned about. So my Garchomp comes out, and now Hippowdon is very weakened. I might get the KO with the EQ, I think. It looked close depending on from the damage I had before. And let's see, I don't get it quite yet, but Hippo is in red and I should be able to KO it with basically anything that comes out. Clefable, Moonblast definitely in range for the Hippo. We'll go for the Moonblast. He hasn't revealed anything that makes me think I should go for anything else, but he reveals the Magma Zone here, so Flamethrower would have done slightly more damage to this for sure, but it really doesn't make a difference in the big picture, right? So I don't want to switch into the Garchomp on a Flash Cannon. That would lose me the game. I know that Garchomp can win this 1v1, so I'm gonna go for the Flamethrower and sack the Clefable here. He goes for the Flash Cannon as expected, and this should KO the Clefable. I don't think that crit mattered, let's be honest. Maybe if I had a Calm Mind up, that probably, but not here. So I definitely do want to be concerned about one thing, that is Endure. If he is to go for the Endure, I just want to switch out, go into my Urshifu and do that. So that's why I went to the Garchomp first as opposed to Urshifu first. Because if there is a world where if I go Urshifu first, he'll just sack the Hippo, bring in Cinderace, high jump kick, and KO the Urshifu. And yeah, if I do that could lose me the game. So he does sack the Hippo, but because I went to Garchomp first and not the Urshifu first, this is not gonna change the outcome of the game. I think his best odds here is going for the Cinderace, and maybe he's like a bandit high jump kick Cinderace, but I know that he's not because he revealed the U-turn damage, right? So I will go for the EQ here. There's no reason to just try to go for anything else, like Scale Shot could miss. I've lost a couple of games to that, so I don't know what. Yeah, so I'm thinking here, what could be losing me the game, right? So, but there really isn't anything else for me to do other than go for the Earthquake. If he gets crit, or then I guess I just lose. There's really not much I can do to try to counterplay that, but that doesn't happen. EQ will take out the Cinderace, and I'll win the game here. So I'm just gonna get this EQ off. No Endure, no Custap Berry, anything like that. Though he might have just decided not to reveal it, which is fair too. Our opponent has a pretty threatening team with the Darmanitan and the Urshifu. So I want to bring the Urshifu so much here. It is going to be able to check the Aegislash. It's also going to be able to check the Darmanitan offensively, because I can take a Icicle Crash with the Urshifu because it's just naturally bulky like that. Amoonguss is going to be able to spore anything that is not sub Aegislash. So I definitely want to bring the Amoonguss Urshifu Kura here. And what's the last going to be? I think Clefable is going to give me best counterplay against his Urshifu. And it's also going to be an option to set up Calm Minds against the Zapdos. Zapdos is definitely very threatening because I didn't opt for a real special wall. I mean, Amoonguss is my special sponge, technically, but it is not really a favorable matchup against Zapdos. I can take a Hurricane even without Focus Sash, just because Amoonguss is bulky like that. But that means that I can't really do much back, and I need to be able to threaten it offensively, like with something like Garchomp or Urshifu. And as for something like Garchomp, if you are using Zapdos, you probably have a good check to it, so this is why I'm a bit concerned about this particular matchup. I do go for the Spore, and he misses, so pretty fortunate there. I am gonna go for the Urshifu, and now I get to just fire off a Wicked Blow here. Pretty free, unless he is the Ballsy type and goes right out into his own Urshifu. And he does exactly that, so let's think about it, because unless he had Zapdos, close combat was pretty free as well, so maybe that was a misplay, going for the Wicked Blow instead of close combat. But I didn't think I should be too afraid of that possibility because I do have the Clefable, right? So I thought I had this matchup covered. But he goes out into the Urshifu, Darmanitan on my Clefable. And this is pretty sketchy because I want to I need to stay in and go for the flamethrower as opposed to switching out again. That would give him his second turn of sleep. He could potentially wake up this turn. So I'm just gonna hope that he takes a 2-turn sleep or longer. And I get the flamethrower 2-hit KO. And that would be good. But he wakes up on the first turn, so pretty unfortunate for me. At least do I get the flamethrower, but I mean, I do get the flamethrower damage, but it is definitely not exactly what I wanted out of that turn. So if he fell asleep for 1 turn more and I got the flamethrower to a KO, that would have been nice. But no, Clefable going down is a lot bigger deal than that 60% on the Urshifu, Darmanitan. That does mean that Urshifu's Sucker Punch will pick it off. But it's definitely not worth it, because if I Sucker Punch and pick it off, their Urshifu comes in and clicks Close Combat. This is a very tough turn. I will go for the Sucker Punch, but I think it's a misplay. Yeah, he goes for the Hippo. It's like Sucker Punch was a misplay, but at the same time, every play was very tough to make at this position. Like, when the position is bad, like, it's really difficult. There comes a point where it's very difficult to justify any play. And yeah, this is definitely a weakness in my team building, where I didn't get the extended sleep turns, and my team somewhat relies on that to not be passive. And he was able to take advantage of my passivity to get the Darmanitan in safely by forcing the switches. So yeah, good on him. And I go for the Spore, but I don't think I can save this game. And he gets the Fisher off too. Like, well, why not, right? Because maybe I could have won the game with an Icicle Crash miss, but at this point, there is no way I can win. But yeah, to be perfectly honest, that Fisher hit probably didn't matter for anything. Like, it was funny to see, at the very least. And I mean, Fisher is definitely a good move against me because my team is so passive, right? Like, and Oko moves go right through all my defensive stats, so I don't think Fisher is a good move on Hippowdon in general, but it does work out here, so good for him. And he's gonna get the yawn. I'm gonna fall asleep, and Urshifu, or Darmanitan is just gonna one-hit KO me. So yeah, good game. My opponent has a pretty offensive, bulky, balanced team here. Has a Zapdos, Melodic, good defensive core, but he also has Cinderace, Urshifu, all of that. I definitely think Zapdos is going to be my saving grace here. It's got good matchup against basically everything. It's also a decent matchup against the Togekiss. Clefable I think I need it for the Urshifu, so that I don't need to switch into the Wicked Blow with Zapdos. And for the final Pokemon, I do bring in the Toxapex. So this 3 is slightly weak against the Metagross, and also the opposing Zapdos. But I have confidence in my ability to outplay this. So I'm gonna go for the Volt Switch here. He goes for the Rising Voltage. Interesting play, but that is not even going to 3-hit KO. And what this means is I can even switch in to my Zapdos, and that means that Zapdos, which seemed to be one of the biggest threats ever, can be managed. So I'm just gonna go for the easy Moonblast here. He did reveal the Rising Voltage, which I don't quite understand, but I mean, I guess we take that. Go for the Moonblast. Oh, force him to reveal the Metagross, right? So I am gonna go for the Zapdos here, and I definitely need to keep roosting off this matchup. And because I do need the Zapdos to stay healthy for the Metagross. And now that my opponent's Zapdos has revealed itself to be pretty bad, I can just use my Clefable to check it. But I definitely need my Zapdos healthy. I switch into the Iron Head and get the Paralysis. Definitely nice, because EQ doesn't really outdamage my Roost by a significant amount anyways. So I'm just going to be able to keep roosting until they get fully paralyzed. And then I might be able to just Hurricane it down a few times before going for the Heat Wave, because I don't want to activate any weakness policy or anything like that. He didn't seem to be AV, because like that AV meta would have taken way less from the Moonblast. So even though I didn't get the Flamethrower read, like that's not actually a bad thing, right? Clefable, Metagross switching in on Clefable is very obvious, but like this is the concept of risk versus reward. I never needed to predict that, and in fact, if I predicted that, that could have gone pretty badly if he were to be weakness policy. So I had no reason to predict it. I don't predict it, and I still gain quite a bit out of it. So yeah, I go for the Volt Switch here. So not Hurricane, but at least this is still going to be a pretty okay position for me. As my Clefable, I could go for the Moon. Yeah, there's like a lot of plays I could make, and none of them are bad. I could go for the Flamethrower, because hoping that after the Moonblast chip, I can actually kill the Metagross in 2. I could Calm Mind, try to guarantee that 2-hit KO against the Metagross, and soften the Zapdos hit. So he seems to be intent on roosting, so I'm gonna take advantage of that turn to go for the Calm Mind. And then after that, I will go for the Flamethrower, because now my Flamethrower is definitely 2-hit KOing, and that means that I have... It's way less risk now for a lot more reward. And yep, I didn't even reveal Flamethrower, so he goes straight back into Metagross, and that's gonna cost him his Metagross. Yep, exactly. So he did have the weakness policy, as I suspected. And if I actually Flamethrowered on the first initial switch to Metagross, that I probably would have been in deep trouble, to be fairly honest. But that doesn't happen, I am able to get the 2-hit KO. He doesn't even have Bullet Punch. So this is definitely a great position for me. And his last is the Cinderace. So I have no reason to not go to the Toxapex here. I presume unless he is Zen Headbutt, then he'll just probably forfeit right there. He reveals Iron Head, and Iron Head is a pretty situational move as it is. So usually Cinderace don't have room to use Iron Head and Zen Headbutt. So I presume the forfeit is coming here. We'll go for the Toxic because even if he has Zen Headbutt, right, I will take one and I'll go for the Toxic. And he doesn't even have it. So my opponent has a pretty interesting team with the Comfy. Comfy is quite the cool pick here, because Urshifu is definitely running this metagame, and honestly, so is Garchomp. So Comfy is an interesting pick. The reason why it's just an interesting pick and not a good pick is because these Pokemon are going to be paired with things that naturally beat Comfy. So in my case, it's that Amoonguss there. I completely blank their Comfy with my Amoonguss. And that means that I can just bring Urshifu and Garchomp and rely on the Amoonguss to kind of win autopilot this matchup here. Amoonguss also is going to be a good Pokemon against a lot of the Pokemon on their team except for the Rotom Heat. But I do have a Garchomp for that. I have the Urshifu for basically everything else. Should be pretty good. So I lead Amoonguss against the Heat, but unfortunately for me, I have the Focus Sash, so I will take the Overheat. But I will not be able to do anything against the Substitute. So unfortunately, I will have to switch out into the Garchomp. I go for the Scale Shot, which will break the sub and do damage to Rotom, but he goes into the Comfy. Good play. But, so, he could pull this off a few times, because I am almost forced to go into the Amoonguss. So yeah, this is why Amoonguss's passivity comes back to bite me. Usually, if he were anything other than Substitute Rotom, I'm okay with going into this and sporing on the Rotom. But because he is Substitute, if he goes right back into the Heat as I go Amoonguss, that means that he can get another Overheat off on the Garchomp for free. And I can't keep that up.
Yeah, he reveals an interesting set with the stored power, but even with the super effective damage, he is never boosting to a point where it could actually be posing a relevant threat. I'm kind of being pressured by my own mistake here. I didn't PP up my Amoonguss, and that is definitely coming back to bite me because uh, I do feel uncomfortable by the fact that he could switch into the Rotom at any time, and also by the fact that uh, he isn't taking that much damage from this trade in the big picture. So I go for the Spore on the thing again, and that is nice, but I'm just gonna be able to go for some clear smogs. But let's look at how little clear smog does. It barely does a third, a quarter even. So if he were to, because I only have 13 clear smogs, so if he has synthesis, that's 8. And the fact that I have that little PP means that if I end up using up all my clear smogs, I'm gonna lose to this Comfy against with my Amoonguss. That's horrible, right? Like if I'm doing barely a third now, but imagine a lot of those clear smogs going into a +1 Comfy, and that is not going to out damage synthesis at all. So that's why I feel a bit pressured here. I So here I'm gonna take advantage of this sleep and go into the Urshifu. Pretty textbook play, but here's the catch. Comfy can wake up, and with the priority draining kiss, that could really ruin me. But I decided to go for the Urshifu play here because I think this is a losing battle. So I get a bit impatient and I go into the Urshifu. First turn, mandatory sleep. So not a big deal. Hopefully this poison jab does 2 KO, but no, he just wakes up turn 1. Draining Kiss does a ton. As I suspected, it's not enough to KO me. And he reveals the Rocky Helmet, so I die. Great. Right, so I need my Amoonguss to beat this Comfy now for sure. And that is my only way out. And I'm kind of hoping that because he took that poison jab damage with the Comfy, I'm able to actually push enough damage on the Comfy, come out on top of the damage trade versus the synthesis to actually out damage the synthesis. So yeah, that definitely does about a quarter. So not great. But this is his second turn of sleep, I believe. And this one did a slightly more. So if I get the 3 turn sleep, I will definitely KO this. So in the hindsight, what I should have done is go for these spores and try to see if I can get the 3 turn sleeps. Because I was thinking in the big picture, if my clear smog can out damage his synthesis. But and the answer is that I can't. But the answer, then what I should have done was, I'll try to get the 3-turn sleep and try to get that going. But I didn't even go for that. I went for the Urshifu first. Kind of hasty, but I do get lucky here. Kind of bailed out, to be honest. And he goes for the Excadrill and not the Rotom Heat. Interesting play, because, you know, he has the substitute. Why wouldn't he go for the Rotom Heat first? He can get a free substitute. And the answer is he has Horn Drill. So I think definitely what he was hoping was maybe I think this is Scarf Horn Drill, definitely, because if he goes Heat and I go Garchomp, and if I boost my speed with Skill Shot, and that's gonna lose him the game. So I'm gonna go into my Garchomp, hope he doesn't get the first turn Wake Horn Drill hit. That would be pretty epic, but that doesn't happen. Doesn't even get the Wake Up. And he goes down because he was Scarf. He revealed that by burning his sleep turn before I moved. And Garchomp versus Rotom Heat. This is as good a matchup as I can get. So unless I miss a lot of Rock Slides, I'm not gonna lose this. And maybe I jinxed it. He goes for the substitute, and that means that Skill Shot is the better play here for sure. But Skill Shot can miss too. So, let's see how this happens. Three, four hits with the Skill Shot makes up for the Rock Slide miss for sure. And I'll just keep going for the he goes for the Nasty Plot. A smart play. He needs to land 2 overheats now and miss 2 rocks, dodge 2 Rock Slides. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Maybe he can get away with one ginormous crit, depending on his investment. But as long as I land this Rock Slide, I shouldn't have to worry about any of that math. So definitely feel bailed by the Amoonguss 3-turn sleep against the Comfey. A team building mistake and a playing mistake, right? So I got a bit hasty there. Mamoswine is a big trouble for this team. So I definitely need to bring Garchomp for the Heat and the Toxapex. But, or I guess either that or the Zapdos for the Toxapex. But that leaves me open to Mamoswine. So I'm going to use Clefable and Urshifu to kind of offensively check that. And Garchomp, because as I said, it's good. So I lead with the Urshifu, which is going to be pressuring most of his team. His team was pretty slow. And because this is a bit of a misplay, but I think might be a bit of a misplay, but I go for the close combat here. Because I've been burned by Urshifu switching into Urshifu so many times. And I don't even get the KO against the Rotom. And if he goes for the Wisp, that is bad, but not the end of the world. But if he goes for the Overheat, and Urshifu lives 1 Overheat against this bulky Citrus Rotom, but after the close combat drop, it's not going to. So that ended up being really bad. Especially because I could have just gone straight into the guard jump. But yeah, kind of upset that I'm not gonna be able to do anything with the Urshifu this game. Uh, Even though I did take out the Rotom Heat, it was never the big problem for me. And the big problem is the Mamoswine. And Urshifu happens to outspeed and KO the Mamoswine. And is not too much pressured by the Ice Shard, unlike Garchomp. So I'm gonna go straight into the Clefable against the Mamoswine, hoping that he doesn't have Icicle Crash. Because I will need to repeatedly recover up on this in order to even have a chance. So, don't do this at home, guys. Clefable is not a consistent Mamoswine check. But this is what I have to do after that turn 1 misplay. I don't think EQ is gonna do a ton, and he does switch out. He does recognize his Mamoswine as being basically the most important thing. And I basically end up wasting the Moonlight PP, but it's actually okay because I would rather stay at 4 and not get too KO'd by Mamoswine EQ than try to preserve the PP in the long term. So I do end up switching into the Toxapex and doesn't get to burn my Lumberry just yet. That's a crit. Yeah, there's no way unboosted Garchomp does that much with just the plain EQ. And he doesn't burn here, but I don't think it really matters because there's no way he switches in EQ into the Toxapex on this. I mean, switches out of the Toxapex into the Mamoswine on this EQ because Mamoswine way more important than the Toxapex here. So he goes, let's go up the Pex first. And Mamoswine is hopefully gonna carry the game for him. I mean, hopefully for him. I mean, I don't want that to happen. But Mamoswine doesn't outdamage Moonlight. So unless he gets crit, I can Moonblast here, keep Moonlighting, and go for the 2-hit KO after recovering enough times. I actually go for the Flamethrower here, because Moonblast does maximum of 50%-ish to an offensive Mamoswine. So that 2-hit KO is almost barely happening. So I'm just gonna assume that that's a 3-hit KO, and go for the Flamethrower burn to maximize my odds. So yeah, so I barely do take below half. And I am just gonna keep Moonlighting this damage off. Actually, I'm just gonna put this on fast, because I'm just gonna do this like 6 more turns. Yep, here we go. This is the important turn. Now I'm out of 2-hit KO range. So there's no reason for me to go for the final Moonlight and risk a crit. I've risked enough crits as is. So I'm just gonna go for the Moonblast to the KO. And actually I get the crit, so if I were to have Moonblasted on the first turn I would have won, but I mean just because you got this lucky roll one time doesn't make that play better. So I'm okay, perfectly happy that I maximized my odds there. So I'm gonna come out on top. It was really not the comfortable matchup here, but I come out on top. And after that game, I hit 1700, 65th place. So this is a matchup where Amoonguss definitely looks phenomenal here. He doesn't have really much to pressure the Amoonguss other than the Zapdos Hurricanes. And that's not very reliable. First, because it can miss a lot. And second, it doesn't even KO. And third, I have to Focus Sash if I am up against something like Specs. I'm gonna use the Garchomp to make sure that I don't lose the Zapdos. And he leads with the Grimmsnarl. Great thing about Amoonguss is that I can basically sit on this Grimmsnarl, and what I can do is just chip it down. And actually, the fact that I will take ages to KO this Grimmsnarl is a good thing. That means that his screen's turns will be stalled out almost naturally. And another thing I can do is basically, I'm not gonna, I don't think I do this turn, but once he sets up his light screen, I'm just gonna go for the Spore, even if he just straight up goes for the taunt. Cause that is basically burning another turn. So, and if he doesn't taunt for whatever reason, then I'm gonna profit massively. But even if he does and taunts, and that's actually just gonna be a beneficial turn for me. Burning a turn, basically doing nothing. So I go for the Clear Smogs. Basically does nothing after this light screen, the special attack drops, and my taunt runs out finally. And as I said, I will go for the Spore. And he goes for the taunt. I mean, good for him, but that was basically what I was predicting would happen. And do I go for the Clear Smog? Because Clear Smog is basically doing nothing. So I might as well try to hit a switch in with Foul Play here. But I go for the Clear Smog, maybe one more time. He does go for the Reflect. So that does make sense. He wants to at least set up his Reflect first before switching out. So I think I Clear Smog one more time. And I'm just trying to chip down this Grimmsnarl as low as possible. And all this Spirit Break damage is basically irrelevant. Once I switch out, that's gonna all be regenerated back. And none of that damage is gonna be regenerated back. And actually, I think Right, so I'm just checking my screen's turns here. And in fact, instead of going for the Spore on the obvious taunt, I'm actually gonna take this opportunity to go into the Garchomp on the obvious taunt. And now this is really good. There's no way he can actually take the EQ at that low. And whatever he has in the back, his sweeper will need to actually switch into this Garchomp EQ, which means that the whole point of screens is kind of negated. He goes for the Clefable. Go for him, but it's not like Clefable needs screens to check Garchomp. So he does reveal the Keyberry, but this is merely a free switch into the Amoonguss. So this is kind of what the synergy I was hoping for with the Amoonguss here. And I'm gonna get the free switch into the Amoonguss, and I'm gonna be able to spore something. Hopefully the Clefable, because that means that I can just try to beat this Clefable 1v1 with the Garchomp by going for 3 EQs. EQ 3 KOs him for sure, because you saw how much damage it exactly did. So I go for the Spore, and kind of hoping either at least I get the Clear Smog off, or I get the force him to switch out. Either way, his Key Berry will be nullified, and that means that Garchomp only needs 3 EQs to actually KO the Clefable, as opposed to 4 or whatever, and Garchomp is never getting that many EQs off. I can take a Moonblast from full, but however that many, like 4 or 5 EQs, that's a bit unrealistic. And he goes into the Grimmsnarl instead and lets that fall asleep. Which is fair, because Grimmsnarl was never really useful. Its screens weren't very useful at all. The only really big factor here is me being burnt. And his screen's turn is about to run out as well. And Grimmsnarl, taking its first mandatory turn of sleep, and I'm going to be able to KO it at this turn. And the reason why I spend that extra turn to synthesis up is, of course, I'm going to be at higher health to check the Clefable with the Flamethrower. But also, this means that his Reflect turn runs out on this. So if he were to go for Wake Up immediately, he could go for the light screen, but that's not very important, because Amoonguss was never something that I was relying on to do damage with. As opposed to the Reflect. Reflect is actually going to stop me from taking down this Clefable effectively. So, he does go for the Moonlight. And I do have a few options here. I could go straight into the Garchomp and kind of hope that he doesn't get an early wake. Or actually, I could go for more Clear Smogs, try to put more damage on this Clefable. And after what happened with Comfey, that is definitely exactly what I'm gonna do. He switches out though. He goes into Excadrill. So going Garchomp definitely would have worked out better, but I stand by this play. And I'm just gonna go into the Garchomp. And Urshifu's Wicked Blow is actually also a 3-hit KO on the Clefable, because it doesn't have lefties or anything like that. So the Clefable has too much pressure to handle while it's asleep. It hasn't even burnt a single turn of sleep, so I'm gonna be able to get this free Earthquake off unless it gets to wake up on the first possible turn. It's not even gonna have a chance, and even if it does, it's gonna be forced to EQ Moonlight a lot, and it might not be at high enough HP to actually KO take the move from the Urshifu. He goes for the Moonblast. There's no way that KOs him without a crit, and I'm just gonna get 2 EQs off and win the game. So good game. He brings out the Excadrill, and even if it's Focus Sash, he can't beat the Urshifu with the Focus Sash Excadrill. And I'm just gonna go for the Amoonguss KO here, just because Urshifu has it in the bag anyways. Didn't want to reveal the Urshifu. So yeah, good game. We are really higher up on the ladder now, I think. A bit of a concerning matchup here, so I know Urshifu is definitely a good pick here. I want to bring it, force out the Galar Weezing, but the problem is the Glalie, and that's a big reason why I want to bring in Urshifu. So I needed to, in order to check the Glalie, to KO it in a reasonable time frame. So I will bring the Toxapex. Should be able to Toxic the Mandibuzz and the Gastrodon. And Clefable is going to be my good mid-ground. It's going to be useful against most of his team members. And including the Mandibuzz, including the Gastrodon. I do think about the Amoonguss for the Gastrodon. But Clefable is going to be my pick here. I go for the close combat against this Mandibuzz, but unfortunately for me, he takes about half, and he's chipping me down with the Rocky Helmet. So this isn't good. I need to find a way to make him switch into me, as opposed to trying to beat it down 1v1, because that I'm not going to be able to win. But if I am gonna be able to somehow force it to switch in, then I'll be winning, because it can't do that. So I go for the Scald, I guess, kind of. It is my only attacking move. But not really happy about this taunt situation. And he switches out, and into what? He brings in the Gastrodon, so he's gonna take advantage of this Toxapex completely. I have to go into the Clefable. It's going to not care about the +1 special attack. I can't just go into the Urshifu and eat this +1 Earth Power. That will just ruin me. So, kind of hoping, my game plan here is to force out the Gastrodon in that position. So if I get the if I catch the Gastrodon somehow, switching into my Toxapex, just like that, and go hard into Urshifu, I can close combat and basically win the game there. Or at least get a KO, and after that, I can win the game. And I think he's gonna sub up here with the Glalie. Sub is pretty free, but he just goes for a straight up Sheer Cold and gets it. That really fucking pisses me off. But, I mean, so what Glalie does, it's just, it tries to win the game with luck. But it ends up being really consistent against bulky teams like mine. With Clefable, Toxapex, Zapdos, like, it's not very good against actually trying to break through this Glalie. So yeah, if I got the Flamethrower off, then that would have been really nice, because that means that he was going to have to sub-protect his way, and if I catch him on the protect and go into Urshifu, that would have worked out really well. But no, he just Sheer Colds turn 1, and he doesn't even give me the chance. I think I just completely lost this, and my only plan, only option here is to try to force in the Gastrodon, as I said before. So I'm gonna go in on this Toxapex, and I'm gonna go for the Scalds, and trying to bait him to go into the Gastrodon. In fact, he actually doesn't have a reason to go into the Gastrodon, he can just sit around. He is in no rush to actually go into the Gastrodon, but I'm just gonna pull the trigger here. I don't think I'm winning otherwise. And I go into the Urshifu. I switched out first, that's a bad sign. Goes for the Toxic. Yep, I basically lost the game. Good game. That really blows with the Glalie. I mean, my team is definitely Glalie weak, so I've got no one else to blame. But at the same time, I think everyone can at least empathize with how it kind of sucks to go out like that. So yeah. So I am gonna go for all the close combats in the world, because, I mean, I could get a crit. If I get a crit, then maybe I can win the game. Toxapex against Gastrodon. Maybe I do
don't take enough from the earth power and I can stall that out. But that won't matter if I can't get this crit. So yeah, the crit didn't happen. Toxapex comes out. He'll gonna taunt. I'll be forced to scald into the Gastro, so I'll just quit now. Before I have to be forced to scald into the Gastro. That'd be really demoralizing. So we fall back out of 1700. But it's okay, we can win more games. We got 20 more. That guy is really high up. He's gotta be one of the higher players in the competition at this point. Might even see him on the final end of the ladder. So I'm gonna use my Amoonguss here, which has a great matchup. And I think I also need to bring the Garchomp for the Cinderace. Either that or the Toxapex. Actually, Urshifu can kind of check Cinderace-ish. Not really. But I do need to bring the Clefable here for the Garchomp. Garchomp is super threatening, so... I wish I could bring 4 Pokemon here. Urshifu, Garchomp, Amoonguss, and Clefable. And yeah, I'm kind of recognizing the flaw of my team is that I want to bring 4 Pokemon every game. And I'm just gonna go for the Spore here. Fortunately for me, Garchomp is not the most threatening concern on my team. And he goes Rillaboom on the Spore. Good play by him, but going for Spore, switching in Rillaboom against the Amoonguss means that it's desperate times for my opponent. Like, he doesn't have any sleep measure at all, a countermeasure at all. There's no like Garchomp for sure. Like, the way he made this play, there's no way. So he goes for the knockoff. I almost expected him to do that because he can't afford to U-turn out and get spored right away. So, but here, once he did the one knock, I might be baited into the synthesis. So I thought this would be the time he brings in the Cinderace, and he lets it get burned. Slept. And I'm just gonna go into the Urshifu and quick close on that. And unless he gets the first turn wake, and I'm gonna win the game. So this is kind of the thing that I've used quite a bit to place high on the Isle of Armor competition. So I'm not really sure if it's like a good, consistent non-ladder strategy, but so basically if I'm up against fairly high-rated opponents like this, then I will gladly take a 2-to-1 win percentage, especially on the ladder. So this is going to... I picked this because I thought I will be able to kind of mindlessly pilot to a 2-to-1 win percentage. And he doesn't get the first turn wake. And there's no way he can break through the Amoonguss now. It's kind of funny. Actually, I'm kind of curious what he brings out next, because he is taking his sweet time here, but I don't see how he can come back from this. So it'll be interesting to see what he tries to pull off. Maybe he goes for the rock slide flinches or something. Let's see what he does. He goes for the Swords Dance. So that is no good for him. I blanked that completely with my Clefable. And he could go for the, Rillaboom switch out, but that really doesn't matter. I go for the Moonblast. This should 2-hit KO the Garchomp for sure. That's crit. So, good thing I didn't have to risk the EQ critting because of my Moonblast crit first, but, not really a big difference there. And there's no way this Rillaboom can beat my Amoonguss, let alone Clefable and Amoonguss, because he'll need to lock into something that is... He needs to lock into a grass move to KO the Clefable. So he's just gonna forfeit. So this is the final game of my day 2. And that Glalie is making me pissed as hell. So what I'm gonna do this time is I'm just gonna go Zapdos first. Either Zapdos first or Urshifu first. And that will put as much pressure on the damn Glalie as well as the Mandibuzz. So those things I'm really kind of concerned about. But I do feel like I do need to bring the Clefable because of the Dragapult and the Garchomp and all that. And that means that I might not have room to bring Zapdos. Kind of unfortunate, but I am going to be able to bring in Urshifu against Dendidi. Great matchup here. I will... But instead of going for the Wicked Blow and getting blanked by the Mandibuzz, I'm gonna go for the close combat. If he goes Dragapult, great play by him, but that is not the big concern here. The big concern is the Mandibuzz, yeah, and I go for the close combat. I get the 2-hit KO. Yep. So I give it to this Mandibuzz, and I'll close combat twice. If he has Dragapult, he will reveal it right here. And if he doesn't, he's gonna have to sack something. Either way, pretty good for me. He reveals no Dragapult. Either he has no Dragapult or he has like no sense of calcs. But because we were pretty higher up on the ladder, I presume that the latter is not the case. I will play assuming that he doesn't have the Dragapult. And here I'll just switch out into the Toxapex because I figure he will go for some Scarf move, something like that. Because I did get chipped down to where maybe some like a Hyper Voice, Scarf Hyper Voice could KO. And I did take the 2 Rocky Helmet damage. So if I were at full, a Hyper Voice wouldn't knock me out. But after taking that 1/3 chip from the Rocky Helmet, I definitely am in range. So I'm gonna take this opportunity to kind of sack the thing. Because I mainly brought the Toxapex for the Cloyster. And the thing is, if he doesn't have Dragapult, that means that I can just use my Clefable to check the check the Cloyster. And I don't know why he goes for the Expanding Force. Like, nice play, but it really doesn't matter. I'm just gonna go for the Wicked Blow this time. Like, I don't get it. I mean, yeah, you got the play right, but let's think a step ahead here. So I'll just go for the Wicked Blow. He's either... Maybe if he's Focus Sash, that could be a way out for him. But no, he just goes into Glalie. And I'm gonna just beat the hell out of that Glalie with the Wicked Blow. Yep, bye bye Glalie. And let's see, if he locks into a Hyper Voice here, I still should be able to beat it 1v1 with my Clefable. So let, because I do have the Calm Mind, and he goes for the Dazzling Gleam, which I guess he didn't see what my last is. If it were to be some like Garchomp, that would be doing more damage, but I do have the Clefable instead. And I'm gonna reveal this, and my guess is if I reveal Calm Mind first, and then Moonlight on the second turn, then I'm not risking any crits, and he'll just kind of forfeit right here, because, I mean, there's no way he can come back from that position. So he might even forfeit this turn. So yeah, I'm gonna Moonlight up, no risking crits here, and anytime now. Yep, great game. So even though we lost a few games, we won a lot more, and at the end we are at 22nd place. That's great. So this put me in a pretty decent place going into day 3, but I mean, I've taken my sweet time making these videos, so you guys probably already know. Spoilers, I didn't finish this high. I do want to upload all my games. Thank you guys for watching. This is a very long one, so if you are still watching, cheers, I guess. Thank you so much. Bye.